Welcome back, ladies and gents. Okay, let's be honest, there's no ladies watching this channel, so gents, today we will be discussing the Sony ZX300. The ZX300 is a player, high-end player, DAP, digital audio player, that came out in 2017 around the middle of the year. Why am I talking about it in 2018? The reason is, it is still an important player on the market. It's one of the first of Sony's, or anyone's, to sport a 4.4mm and 5-pole jack for balanced operation, as well as a regular 3.5 for single-ended. It does high-res out the wazoo. It does DSD, decodes basically everything you want. It even introduced Sony's LDAC Bluetooth codec, which is of course until this moment the highest end and least compressed of all Bluetooth codecs. It's a great player. Some might even say it's the best in its class. I bought it in order to do a review at Headfonia last year, and I finished it. It was a good review. Some might say the best. And here we have the box. It's like this from the front. From the side it's like this. And the back like this. It's got all the information in Japanese for all of you weeboos out there. But to get in, we have to pop the top. This is the inner box. This is the outer box. The outer box is going to go over here. The inner box is very nice. One thing I really like about it is the 180-degree folding hinge. Now, I'm going to hold this in so I don't lose the Sony. Because it folds 180 degrees, it doesn't end up opening and staying about like this. It sits flat on the table, flat, flush, and wonderful. Now the Sony ZX300 is just right here. Underneath it is the proprietary USB cable, which is a real bugger to get back in here. This is their proprietary 30-pin or 18-pin, the sort of pin that Apple abandoned in 2011, Sony are still using and have used from the mid-2000s. When you pull this tab here, there's documentation on the inside. My unit came with 1, 2, 3, and 4 different documentations. And it fits just like this in the palm. Has rounded sides, which are really nice to use. And the button array, from power to volume to tracking, as well as hold, are all along one side. There are some advantages to that. That is, if you hit power, your other finger on the other side, which is pressured to hold this thing, is not going to end up pressing something else. But you have a whole bunch of buttons to remember. In order to help you remember them, Sony have installed raised nibs here on the plus volume, as well as the play button. And of course, the hold button feels different, so you will never forget what that means. So as long as you remember, hold is on the bottom, power is on the top. The next buttons will be the volume, and they're rather flush, and in between them will be the tracking. And just in the perfect way, and unlike Fio, plus goes up, minus goes down, and tracking plus or tracking forward goes up and tracking backward goes down. It's very natural. It's a wonderful layout. One thing I like about the interface here is that if you go all the way to the left, it shows your basic music selection screen. Album, genre, the composer, release date, artist, and you can select by all of your songs. You can also enable or disable USB DAC functions, and then your navigation here. But if you press or slide from up or down to up, then you can get back into your actual song screen. And then if you do it again, it'll take you to the EQ. Just like the Sony players of old, from the 2000s and even the 1990s, you cannot change your language. This thing is stuck to Japanese. Now, it was bought in Japan and it's sold for the Japanese market, but in what decade do you buy something and it only works in a certain language? Even Windows, which you had to use to send out for a different language pack, no longer does that. This is ridiculous. This is actually extremely poor design. Otherwise, Sony did a great job, and I'm really surprised by this. It only has one slot, but it's covered. Not only is it covered so that you won't get a lot of dust in there, and so the card won't be damaged, and it has a nice fingernail slot here to open, it actually has a rubber gasket on it. So that if you, for some reason, are taking your player out in the rain, or you're swimming, no, never swim with this, but in case you get splashed with some rain or with maybe a drink, you're going to protect the innards of your player. Another thing interesting is that when this player came in the package, it came with plugs for both the headphones as well as for the 18 proprietary port here. That means that if you splashed any port on this device anywhere, from headphones to micro SD to the port, the data port, you wouldn't get water ingress very easily. That's the sort of engineering that you don't see on anything outside of high-end or enthusiast cameras today. The back of the player is non-slip. It's kind of a rubber coating. As you can see, here's the Near Field Communications logo, and here, if I can get it to flash, is the Walkman logo. It's a pretty handsome player, and you put it down on the table and it doesn't slide. For comparison's sake, let's put the box down. The box slides very easy. This, as you can see, my fingers are the things that are moving because the back of the device has gripped onto the table. This is a very nice design which keeps your player where you put it rather than sliding off and hurting itself. One thing I don't really like about the Sony ZX300, and actually what I really don't like about a lot of their high-end DAPs from a long time ago and even till today, is that if you plug in sensitive headphones like the Campfire Audio Atlas, which are sensitive and render hiss essentially almost from the vacuum of space, you are going to get a noticeable amount of hiss from the output. My iPhone SE, for instance, the one that's filming this scene at the moment, doesn't hiss at all with these earphones. Or if it does, it's to such a minimal degree that it doesn't bother me at all. So, while I like listening to these earphones, they're one of the better ones I've ever heard. Instead, what I like to use are Sony's own MDR-EX1000s. The MDR-EX1000s are large diameter dynamic driver earphones. They sound great, isolate really well, are made well. Because they're not so sensitive, I can plug them into the same player and use the same music and not hear any of the hiss that I would hear through the Campfire Audio Atlas. Which is a real shame again, because the Atlas sounds better, is much more crisp than these are. If I'm going to be using the ZX300, I will not be using really high-end, really sensitive earphones. I will be using really good medium-end earphones or high-end earphones with a high impedance and a low current requirement. Its Danish price, its beautiful industrial design, its good performance, and its interface that embarrasses most of the competition makes the ZX300 a phenomenal DAP. But like the Sony NW-WM1Z, it hisses, but not horribly. It also doesn't break the 16-bit ceiling in any meaningful way, but it nails DSD decode and playback, runs smoothly through albums, songs, and artists, and it has an artful UI to boot. As they do in the WM1Z, artifacts at top volume and high gain somewhat mar the audio experience, but I'll be damned if anyone is listening to music beyond 108 decibels anyway. One thing the ZX300 kills is the trifecta of IMD, jitter, and THD. Even under load and blowing the drivers on a set of Earsonics SM2 or Audio ES7, it keeps all three low. The ZX300 isn't the performance monster that Onkyo's DPS-1 is. Astel and Kern's AK100 with its low impedance mod goes neck and neck with it, and that thing's from 2011 or 12. Its balanced output has a relatively high level of jitter, but under load it doesn't rise, and both with and without load that jitter is inaudible. But no one out there delivers such a good screen, smooth playback, and no one out there delivers Sony's build quality. This is a good player. It's just one that I don't use. And that was the Sony ZX300. I hope that this video helped you understand how well it performs, how well it drives earphones and headphones of various sorts, how well it plays back files, how speedy its operating system and UI is. I hope that you liked its grommets, its plugs, and all that. I hope you realize that I love this player and love what Sony attempted to do with it. Finally, I hope that you leave a comment and a thumbs up or a thumbs down and tell me what I can do better or what really interested you about the video. So I will see you next time. Thank you. Ta-ta.